Hey guys, and welcome back to today's video. Today I'm going to be working on my personal boat engine. It is a 1976 Johnson 85 horsepower. This video is entirely going to be voiced over, just like this, and the reason being because I was quite nervous when I was doing that. It was the first time I've worked on an engine of that size before, so I just wanted to take things slowly. If you have any questions at the end, you can certainly let me know, but I'm just going to explain step by step what I did this way, and I won't be talking in the video itself. Alright, so right here I'm taking the airbox cover screws off right there. They were a little tight, so I had to use a socket wrench to get them started, and then I could just take them off with a flathead screwdriver. There's just 3 screws there. Once they come off, that top little cover there will come right off. You'll see here in a second once I get those screws off. There you go. There, see that top cover comes off there. Put the screws back in, set it to the side, and there we go. Alright, so next I need to take the choke solenoid off. So I was marking the choke solenoid to make sure I knew where it would go with a Sharpie there. Making sure everything closes and opens smoothly. It kind of doesn't. I was just observing there that it doesn't really open very smoothly. So I believe I'm going to go ahead there and take that choke solenoid off there. I need to get that little rod out of the solenoid itself. There we go. You see I'm taking the socket wrench there. Just take off that one bolt there, or loosen it at least. And I gotta get back there and loosen the other one too, just so I can slide that choke solenoid down and get it, get that little rod out of the solenoid, because that's keeping the thing on there. You see I'm trying to get it out there. That wire's keeping it in the way. And there we go, I popped it out there. So I'm going to go ahead and put that choke solenoid to the side then. Those wires were pretty delicate, so I had to be careful. And I was going to take that rod off of there, set that aside. And then from there, I have to take that little choke assembly, not the choke assembly, the throttle and shift cables off there, because those were connected to the airbox, and I had to get the airbox off in order to get to the carbs. So, there, just taking that off there. That bottom bolt was a little bit tough to get to, so I had to put a socket on there and just hand screw it off there with that socket. But eventually I was able to get it off there. There you go, I got my hand socket on there. There we go, now it's off. Alright, after the shifter cable box, I'm going to go ahead and take the main screws right out of the airbox assembly there. There's only 4 screws, 2 on each carburetor, holding it on there. And try to wiggle it out there. I believe the fuel pump is still attached on the other side, so I'm going to have to work around that. Looks like I'm taking the fuel pump off right there, just to separate it. There's 3 screws to separate it and 3 screws that keep it on. I'm not sure which ones they are. You're going to have to look there. But there we go. Got the fuel pump off. Looks like that airbox is loose. There's a little hose in the bottom right corner that you're going to have to pry off there at the bottom of that airbox. I had a hard time getting that off. So just be careful, because that hose can break. But once you get that off, that airbox there should be pretty free. And be careful, because sometimes there's two gaskets there, and sometimes they'll fall off on the airbox itself. I mean, yeah, see there, I'm trying to pry that hose off. It's not going very well for us. I think I ended up snipping the hose and just making it a little shorter. But There we go. I finally got the hose off and I got the airbox off. Alright, so from here I started taking the main carburetor bolts off. It looks like on the top here I used my socket wrench just to take those two top bolts off there. Screw those off. Those were the easy ones. But then I actually had to get in there with a wrench on the bottom ones, a 7/16 wrench, and manually take those off. And while I was taking them off, I had to slide the carburetor out ever so slightly because there was two screws there blocking it from coming off. So I'm sure you'll see that in a sec here. Yeah, there you go. I'm going with the wrench there, playing with the linkages. And then I discover that I can't take it off. I have to slide the carburetor out. And then I go on the other side there. And there you see I'm sliding the carburetor out there as I take the nut off. So you're going to have to slide the carburetor off just a little bit in order to get those two bottom nuts out. And now the other side. It looks like that carburetor is pretty loose now. I'm going at the bottom carburetor now. I'm going for the top bolts there. That one, the top ones should be easy, even on the bottom carburetor. They should just come right off. You could probably even use a socket wrench. And the bottom ones there, that was a pain because the cables were kind of in the way. But those bottom ones you also have to loosen and then kind of pry the carburetor out in order to get those bottom bolts off. But that one was a pain, those bottom ones, because there was cables on the left and fuel lines on the right. So you'll just have to be careful of that when you go to take the those bottom bolts off there. Alright, so right here I got the bolts off a little easier, and here I'm trying to slide both of the carburetors off. And there, they'll come off just as both right there. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the fuel lines off. Just with the two little hose clamps on each one, right there. Loosen those, pop them off, or don't pop them off, just bring them down the fuel line. Put a little thing under there just to catch any excess fuel, and then just pry the fuel lines off. They should come off easy. Those are good fuel lines. And once you get the fuel lines off, I take it to the bench and undo the linkages. So right here I took the fuel line off, and there go the carburetors onto the bench. So under the carburetors there was a small little plastic just cover that we had to take off because we found out that a screw went under there, and that wasn't good, so that screw went to the carburetor. I'll let you in on that a little later, but here I go doing the carburetors now. I'm sorry I didn't show taking the linkages off, but they kind of just pop right off. So here I'm going to the first carburetor. I'm going to unscrew the bowl here. There's 4 flathead screws. Yeah, I had to get a better screwdriver because those screws were a little tight. Just be careful when you're taking those off. Don't be, you know, really tough. And there's your float. There's your bowl gasket taken off right there. Wiping all the gas out of there because it's, you know, a little nasty. Wipe the bowl out. And then take the drain screws out on the bowl itself. They were a little tight, so I had to get a socket wrench and take them off with a socket wrench. There's one on each side. Take them both off. There should be a little O-ring on each of them, right? Okay. And make sure, you know, they're all clean. Get in there with a little wire, and there's a little plug in there, orifice plug jet. Just get in there and make sure those are clean with a little wire. Spray some carb spray in there, you know, blow it out. That's got to be clean all in there. And from there, I was just measuring the float drop, because the float drop needs to be the same once I put the float back together, because that float is very adjustable. So I was using my digital caliper there to measure that drop. I believe it was around, boy, I don't remember. So then from here, those two yellow tubes right in the center of the carburetor, there's 4 holes on each side. Make sure those are all clear. Stick your little tool straight down the center. Make sure that's clear. There's 2 screws on each side of the carburetor. You're going to want to go ahead and take those out. Here I'm doing one. And inside there's a little jet. You're going to want to take a small screwdriver, get that jet out, and then flip the carburetor upside down, and that little jet should come out. Spray it out with carb spray. Make sure that you can see through it. And if you can see through, that's a good sign. If you cannot, it's still clogged. Spray in the carburetor, you know, and then reinstall that jet. And make sure that jet's tight, because if it's not, you're running rich. Your carburetor's going to, there's too much gas. It's going to not run right. So here I'm going to go do the same thing with the other side. Pop that screw out there. And, you know, pop the jet out. And tipped upside down, spray it out. Make sure you could see through it. There you go, you see right through it. And then install it back in the carburetor with your little screwdriver. Make sure that it's tight, because if it's not going to run right. There you go. Then what I'm going to do here is I'm going to pop the float pin out, and then just pull that float straight up. The needle should come off. And right in the center of that float, there's a little seat you're going to want to take out with a big screwdriver, which I just did there. Pop that out. You know, spray it down with carb spray, the carburetor. And of course, it can't be a small engine kit video without putting my carburetors in the ultrasonic. So I'm going to go ahead and dunk my carburetor in my ultrasonic. I'm going to put the carburetor in the basket face down. You don't have to do this, obviously, but I'm going to. Put the bowl in, and then I'm going to go ahead and stick it in the ultrasonic there for about, I think about half an hour I put it in there for, and then I'll come back to you when it's finished. So first of all, I went ahead and slowed my video down a little bit because it was a little too fast. But then I took my Evinrude Johnson carburetor kit and I dumped it there. Those are all the parts I need to rebuild my carburetor. It's a genuine Evinrude Johnson carburetor kit. That's the good stuff. Alright, so then from here I'm going to go grab my new seat. That's that little brass big screw we took out earlier right there. I'm going to go grab my new one from my carburetor kit, and I'm going to screw it in there. There's a little white seal that goes on it before you put it on. So put that white seal on that seat, and then go ahead and screw that in. Make sure that's tight. Then take your float and your needle. Put your needle on your float, just where the two holes are on the float, and then put your float and needle. Just put your needle inside the seat, and then put your float pin through the float once your needle's inside the seat. There you go. It should click in, actually, this carburetor. It might click, and there we go. I got it in. So now what I'm going to do is I have to make sure that the float is parallel with the body of the carburetor. If the float's not parallel, just bend the little metal tab on the float itself with a pair of pliers to make sure that it's level. Right there, like I'm seeing, I'm going to bend it up a little bit. And then it should be parallel now, seeing as I bend it. There we go. I'm going to go look at it, and it should be good. And when you're done with that, you're going to want to flip the carburetor over, and that measurement you got earlier with that caliper, you're going to want to go ahead and try to perfect that measurement. There's a little tab, I don't know how to say this, towards the throttle body. There's a little tab if you're looking at the carb from the throttle body. On the float, you could push it in, and it'll raise that float a little bit downwards. So I'm going to go ahead and put, anyways, I'm going to put the side jets back in. I don't know why, maybe I took them out to put them in the ultrasonic again, but I'm going to go ahead and put those side jets back in because apparently I took them out for some reason and I forgot. And then those two side screws, there's a little red O-ring, not O-ring, a little red seal that goes on each of those screws that you will have to put on the screws and then put the screws back in the slots there. And right about here, this is when I found out, oh snap, my screw is stripped. So I had to, well, first of all, the threads on that screw were completely chomped away. The threads on the carburetor itself was fine. So I had to buy a new screw, which happened to be about $30. So that wasn't very fun that I had to do that, but as you can see here, it worked fine without the seal because the threads below it were fine, but I needed the seal, so I had to buy a new screw for $30, and that was fun. So from here, I went ahead and put the float bowl screws back in. That was just with another one of those red seals. And I had to make sure those screws were nice and tight. They had to be tight. And then what I wanted to do is I was a little bit unsure of what that measurement was that I took with the float. So I took off the other carburetor float bowl in order to see the measurement. So then from here, I went ahead and put the bowl gasket on and installed the bowl because I was done inside the carburetor, and I put my 4 screws back in. I made sure to tighten those down evenly because gaskets need to be tightened down evenly. I made sure to put them in nice and tight too because I didn't want them coming out. Yeah, I really should have put Loctite on these bolts, but I did not. And there you go, that first carburetor is rebuilt now. Alright, so then from here, with the bowl taken off on the second carburetor, I took the float off, and then I uninstalled the seat, the little seat there with the screw, and then I took the side screws out. I just jumped right in with this one because, you know, it was kind of easier to do since I already did the first one. But yeah, get those screws off. Sorry for not showing it. It was a little tough. And then I'm going to take the side jets out with my little screwdriver. And then I'm going to spray them out with carb spray. And blow them out with the air hose. And then put them back in. Now I'll clean out the little yellow jets there, the little yellow tubes. With my little wire. And in ultrasonic bath, it goes for about a half an hour. Alright, we just got done with our ultrasonic bath. I'm going to go ahead and open my carb kit and dump all the new parts out there. Make some room first. There we go. There's my carburetor kit. Open up all the pieces. Dump all your little seals out there. And the intake gaskets, put them aside. And the float, needle, and seat. Looks like I'm going to dry it off a little bit from that ultrasonic fluid. Yeah, they're both pretty clean. Better than when I started. Spray it out a little bit with my air compressor. Get those butterfly valves moving good. And clean out the jets there. All the little passageways have to be clear. Clean out the float bowl too. Spray it out. Now I'm going to go ahead and open my needle and seat kit. Dump that out. There we go. Get my needle and seat. My seat and my seat seal, sorry. Put them together. Put that in there with my big screwdriver. Get that nice and tight. There we go. Huh. Giving me difficulty. There we go. I got it in. Now I'm going to go ahead and take my needle and just slide it on my float right there. I'm going to go ahead and put that on and put my pin in with it. There you go. And then I'm going to go ahead and I will adjust the float later. But I'm going to go ahead and install those side jets with my little screwdriver. And then I'm going to put the screws in the side of the carburetor with those little red seals on them. Yeah, I have to clean out those side jets first. There, now I'll put them back in. Go ahead and put the screws back in with the little red seals on them. Get those tight. And then go ahead and put my float ball screws back on with the little red seals. They have to be tight as well. I'm not sure if I mentioned, but inside the jet there's two little, inside the float ball there's two little jets that you have to go through with a wire. And then I'm going to adjust my float. I had a hard time with this float for some reason. It really took me a long time to adjust this float. So be patient as I adjust this float here. And then once I'm done adjusting the float, I'll put the ball back on, screw it back on, and I'm going to put the carbs back on. I'm not going to show putting them back on because I just showed taking them off, and it's just going to lengthen the video. I will jump back to you when I go to start the motor, though. So I'll jump back to you guys when I have everything back together and I have gas in the boat. Alright, so I'm out here with the outboard now. I was having an issue. I got it in the bucket. I was having an issue where it was coming out of the bottom carburetor. So what I did is I just took the old needle and seat and put it in there, and it works fine. Yes, something I'm going to have to replace in the future, but not something I'm worrying about for now. But really, look how easy it starts. Look. Look at that. I'm running out of gas. I bet you I'm running out of gas. Yep, running out of gas. Here, hold on. New tank of gas. I think I mixed it a little rich. I mixed it at 32 to 1. I won about 40 to 1. There we go. Probably better on gas now. Here, let's see. I'll do a cold start. So lift this all the way up. Key on. Choke up. There you go. Come on. The thermostat's got to open up. You have to let the water through. Oh, there it goes. Kinda. Get the water level up a little bit. Because how this works is that the impeller is below the water level. So the impeller pumps only if this stuff is below the water level. Yeah, that's better. It sounds like it's going to stall, but it never does. I guess that's a good thing. Pumping good. It's pumping okay. I'm going to do the impeller next year. Starts that easy. By the way, this thing burns like gallons to the mile. It's terrible. I'm just gonna let it. Runs good. Thanks for watching. See you on the next one.